G'day guys, Justin here, coming at you with another NBA video. This time, my updated MVP race for the 2018-19 season through to the end of December 2018. Bit of a different look this time, so let's get into it. My honourable mentions list, I'm not going to do the next 10, I'm just going to do my honourable mentions list because we're really starting to thin the herd out a bit here. So my honourable mentions list at the moment, so my next five would include Kyrie Irving of the Boston Celtics, Damian Lillard of the Portland Trail Blazers, as you'll notice, has dropped out of the 10 here, LeBron James of the Los Angeles Lakers, albeit a constructed side to his advantage. He's certainly proving to be pivotal to that squad now that he's out. So there's no doubt he gets a mention. LaMarcus Aldridge of the San Antonio Spurs has been playing well. Just happens to have form slumps here or there that do cost him. And Nikola Jokic just happens to be a good player on a well-rounded side. And that's certainly of benefit to him in the race. And, I mean, Kyrie Irving, he's just leading the Celtics the way they are. He's sometimes a pain in their development, but he is, arguably their best player. So he does deserve a mention as well. At number 10, I have Jimmy Butler of the 76ers. Through to the end of December, Butler's averaging 19.2 a game in points, 4.8 rebounds a game, 3.6 assists per game, 2.1 steals per game, 0.7 blocks and 1.4 turnovers. Very efficient, a well-rounded game there. Just a clip under 47% shooting, almost 39% from deep, and around that 85% mark from the free throw line. So a pretty well-rounded scoring effort there. And I mean, he's, as mentioned here, one of the best all-round players in the league. There's no doubt about that. And he's proven that. Again, one of the clutchest players in the league. He continues to prove that. But what he is continuing to also prove is to be a bit of a chemistry killer and a bit of a locker room problem. And those problems in Philadelphia are certainly starting to rise into media prominence, so to speak. So I think in order for the team to have success, and as well as Butler to have success, he's going to have to really start gelling and understanding that some of these younger guys are going to get the priority over him, particularly in their second and third year, guys like Embiid and Simmons. Now, do I understand why Butler wants the ball at the end of the game? Of course. He's one of the clutchest, if not the clutchest player in the game. However, you've just got to sometimes trust the coach and understand that the big man's going to probably get priority as well, considering Embiid is also on this list. At number 9, I have Tobias Harris of the LA Clippers. He hasn't moved, Tobias. He's still in the same spot as last time. 21 points a game, 8.2 rebounds a game, 2.3 assists per game, 0.6 steals and 0.4 blocks on just under 2 turnovers a game, and having a great scoring year efficiency-wise as well. 50.4 from the field, 42.5 from deep, and 88.1 from the stripe. Again, he's carrying the Clippers to a seeding they weren't expecting. I don't think there's anyone in the league that actually came out and said the Clippers were going to be even a playoff team, let alone start to really seed as high as they are. I mean, at one point they were, earlier in the piece, leading the Western Conference and were a top 4 team after that. But, I mean, he's having a great year leading them. I mean, he's having an all-star season. For me, he has to be an all-star in the West to do what he's doing with this side. There's no doubt about it. However, he's probably going to want to pick up his game just a little bit on the defensive end to keep the Clippers in the hunt, particularly when you look at the team he has around him. Not a great team, has pretty much essentially a bunch of role players who are just playing their role really well. One of the better examples of it over the recent league history of just good role players doing their thing. So, I mean, if he picks up a little bit more, can inspire his teammates, the Clippers can probably stay or even go a little bit higher than where they are. But no doubt about it, Tobias Harris, one of the more pivotal players in the league this year, particularly for the Clippers, and that's why I've got him at number 9. At number 8, I have Victor Oladipo of the Indiana Pacers. Oladipo was sitting just outside, sort of in that next 10 honourable mention area last time, but he's managed to come back into the game, and, I mean, he's proved pivotal to get Indiana into the top 3 of the East. Averaging 19.6 points, 6.3 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 1.8 steals, 0.4 blocks on 2.5 turnovers. Efficient there with his possession. Scoring needs to probably go up a bit at 43% from the field. However, his 35% from deep does help that. 73.4 from the stripe, even he'd be disappointed with that. I mean, most guards you want to see shooting 8 out of 10. However, he is one of the best all-around players in the league. He gives it to you night in, night out on both ends of the floor. He's a perimeter guy who's willing to guard the best perimeter player, whether that be a LeBron James, a Russell Westbrook, a John Wall, a James Harden. He's willing to step up and take those assignments. And he's one of the most underrated clutch players in the game. He's delivered massive down the stretch and in pivotal games this season for Indiana. And it's at a guy that young, I mean, you can only hope to see that go on throughout the years of his career and continue to develop that side of his game. And again, that comes with being able to play both sides of the ball. And if the defense starts doing well, then the offense takes care of itself. And he's an embodiment of that across the league. However, he's going to need to avoid missing any more games. If he has another extended stretch or a reasonable stretch of games, he's not going to be able to be in this MVP conversation because it's very rare that a player will miss significant amount of game time and still somewhat be able to be in the MVP conversation. However, it's also pivotal for him not to miss games for Indiana's sake, just because of, they're sitting as a third team. They have the potential to sneak up a little bit in the East. I mean, I think Toronto and the Bucks are going to be permanently the two teams to be on top in the East there. However, Indiana to cement their third seed and potentially crack up a little bit higher. I don't see it happening, but they could do it. He's going to need to avoid missing more time. At number 7, I have Joel Embiid of the Philadelphia 76ers. He has dropped a little bit, but I will get to that in a second. 26.5 points, 13.3 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 0.5 steals, 1.9 blocks on just over 3 turnovers a game. Shooting 48.4 from the field, he really needs to lift that. There's no excuse for a big man to be shooting under 50%. 28.5 from deep, he needs to stop shooting them or he needs to start improving his efficiency rate. And 80.1 from the free throw line. Excuse me, I can't deny him there. He is the best centre in the NBA, there's no doubt about it. He can play both ends of the floor. Now, not to an elite level on defence, but he is a good defender. And I mean, his scoring does speak for itself. Again, he is a bit patchy and needs to be a bit more consistent, as I have mentioned. I mean, Embiid has games of 29 points, 30 points, where he scores 17 and a quarter and very much does nothing on the offensive end for the rest of the game. But again, he has been a proven commodity on both ends of the floor. He isn't a slouch on defense, and he is by no means the worst offensive player in the league. His footwork will develop over time. I think his post game will develop over time. And I mean, he's got the ability to still score those points at the moment, which is good to see. And again, proven commodity on both ends, but he does need to resolve some chemistry issues, as previously mentioned with Jimmy Butler, and his scoring efficiency will need to improve. I don't know a big who gets a pass for shooting under 50% like Embiid does, and I think that's a lot to do with the hype machine. Again, the chemistry issues, once him and Butler work that out, if Embiid and him can really start splitting the fourth quarter scoring, if Embiid can can understand just how important it is for Jimmy Butler to be hitting those big shots, I mean, he's one of the best big shot makers in the game, then Embiid will be fine and the Sixers will be fine and Butler will be fine. But again, he needs to resolve those issues. And again, the scoring efficiency to me is a big factor for a big man like him. Again, no slouch on D. Could probably see that up a bit. I mean, his best defensive efforts really came from him in a rookie season. So, all defensive last year, yes, but I still feel his better defensive efforts were in his rookie season, albeit the limited time. But number 7, Joel Embiid, the Philadelphia 76ers. At number 6, I have Steph Curry of the Golden State Warriors. 28.7 points, 5.2 rebounds, 5.3 assists, or 1.4 steals and 0.4 blocks. Not a turnstile on defense, but certainly lacks the effort and consistency on defense. And he does all that on 3 turnovers a game. 48.7% from the field. When you look at the fact that he shoots 45.2 from deep, is just ridiculous. And 91.5 from the free throw stripe. He's one of the most deadly, if not the most deadly offensive player in the league on his night. He brings the Warriors back. He's brought the Warriors back to the top of the West. There's no doubt about it. And that just proves how pivotal he is to this squad. He does help guys like Clay, does help guys like Durant get open because at the end of the day, he does attract so much attention. I mean, you can't blame him when the guy's able to hit a jumper anywhere inside of the circle at halfway, that is. He's once again on track for a 50-40-90 season. At one point was going 50-50-90, but I think he will be able to boost that back up to 50-40-90 again. I think he's the last player since Jordan to have 30 points a game on 50% shooting, just to give you an idea of 2015, 2016. I mean, he is on track for 50-40-90, so we'll see whether that happens and whether he can get that 30 points a game again. But he has to stay on the floor. It's that simple. for him to be a massive factor and for Golden State to win, he's got to stay on the floor now. Their defensive troubles can be spoken about. Their offensive woes can be talked about when you look at him coming in and disrupting a little bit of the chemistry and the flow that Kevin Durant has. But if he's on the floor, the Warriors are almost unbeatable. And they are, well, not unbeatable in the sense, but they certainly look like the championship favourites when they're winning the way the Warriors can win. They are struggling at the moment, but again, we're just closing in on the All-Star break, so don't be surprised if they knuckle down a little bit more and start getting serious. I'm not worried about DeMarcus Cousins coming back. Again, he had an Achilles injury, so 12 months out of the game is going to be pivotal to him. He might be able to provide some minutes here or there. But to me, Steph Curry, number 6 in the MVP race. At number 5, he's managed to sneak in out of nowhere. At number 5, I have James Harden of my Houston Rockets. 33.3 points, 5.8 rebounds, 8.4 assists, 2.1 steals, 0.5 blocks on 5.5 turnovers, which is major there, particularly when you look at the turnovers and the fact that his defensive numbers don't reflect his how poor he can be on defense. 44.2 from the field, unacceptable. I mean, anyone shooting under 45% should be sitting on the bench. It's just lucky he pours the points in. 38.7 from deep to me is unacceptable for a guy who is a jump shooter and does take as many as he is. He should be a 40% shooter. An 84.9 from the stripe. With the amount of trips he has, he should be a 90% shooter. If James Harden was shooting 47, 48%, 40% from deep, 90% from the stripe, I'd have no issues. But he can be inefficient there. He's inefficient with his possession of the ball and not necessarily the best turnover. With all of that being said, he has carried the Rockets back up in the Western Conference. There's no doubt about it. For anyone to sit there and say that he hasn't done that, it's a little naive, in my opinion. Now, is he the most valuable player in the league? Well, at the moment, he's proving to be the Rockets' most valuable player, but there are certainly other players in this league who have had better seasons and who I would deem more valuable to a team I was starting. He's the most dominant offensive player in the game at the moment. There's no doubt about that. The scoring stretch he's been on has been ridiculous. Not historically ridiculous, but he's just been on a real good tear. And I mean, you can't really, it's not that he's unguardable, it's that you just can't touch him, you can't lay a hand on him. But however, he does need to stop this ref baiting and needs to prove he can deliver in the clutch. I mean, he hit a big shot against the Warriors just a few games back, but in general, Harden in the big situations doesn't come up when he needs to because he relies on the refs. And the refs will not bail you out in a late game situation, and they sure as hell won't bail you out in the playoffs. Again, that being said, his numbers are looking tremendous, and he has dragged the Rockets back into playoff contention and into the top 4 of the Western Conference, which is no mean feat itself, considering they were second last in the West there at one point. He's having a tremendous effort there. But as I mentioned, the ref baiting will need to stop, and his ability to deliver in the clutch will need to rise if Houston want to have any future success in the season, and definitely want to have any serious success in the playoffs. At number 4, I have Kawhi Leonard of the Toronto Raptors. 26.7 points, 8.3 rebounds, 2.9 assists, 1.7 steals and 0.6 blocks on 2 turnovers. Reasonably efficient scoring as well. 48.7 from the field, a tick under 37% from deep, and 86.3 from the stripe. Again, proving to be a great two-way player. There's no doubt about it. Kawhi is just one of those guys that can give you 25 points a game, and if he wants to, I mean, he needs to start doing it a bit more. And it's just something he started to do this season, the last couple of years. He's got to stop taking plays off on defense. He has slacked off a bit there, but I mean, he's a guy that can give you 25 points and lock down the opposition's best player. There's no doubt about that. I mean, and he's potentially at this point leading the Toronto Raptors to the finals, which would be absolutely huge. It'd be the first time the Raptors had made the finals, obviously. And it'd be a great way, perspective-wise, for him to rebound after the way he left San Antonio. However, he needs to stop taking some of the big games and the big matchups off. Quite often, Kawhi will go into a game, or you'll see the Raptors going into a game where, okay, it looks like he's going to match up on a Paul George, or, okay, big game, he's going to probably match up on James Harden, and all of a sudden he's resting in its workload purposes. I don't know why, considering Kawhi's claim to be fit since last season, that he'd want to take games and matchups off, and why the medical staff would be doing that. It certainly doesn't help him. And I mean, if he misses too many games, he won't be in this MVP conversation just purely by missing games. which is another reason why I sort of dropped down the list a little bit here. But again, if he stops taking these big matchups off, gets back into focusing on his D, the offense does take care of it itself. I mean, he does have the potential to be the MVP of the league. However, it's just not viable when he takes big games off. It just is a tick against him. However, that still doesn't change the fact that he's number 4 in my MVP race. And the guy that's on top of him is the guy leading the best team in the Eastern Conference, Giannis Antetokounmpo of the Bucks, and he is a mad stats guy, and that is one thing that will keep him in this race. 26.6 points, 12.8 rebounds, 6.1 assists, 1.3 steals and 1.5 blocks. He is a good player on both ends of the floor. 4.3 turnovers, a little to be desired. Few other things to be desired outside of the 58.6 from the field. I mean, he's only 15.4 from deep, and he's less than 70% from the stripe. So his shooting form isn't great, which is something that, you've got to be able to rely upon at times. But, I mean, he's returning godly numbers for the best team in the East, and that will always keep him at the top of people's minds and at the forefront of the MVP race. And don't get me wrong, Giannis is a good two-way player. He can score, he can rebound, he plays good defense, not great, but good defense. Certainly passable defense, more than passable defense than a lot of this list. And he does have the ability to facilitate the ball. He is sort of moulding himself in the ilk of a LeBron James, where his numbers are going to start doing the talking for him. However, I do think he needs to work on that a little bit more. And I mean, there's no doubt about it. To me, he's the most athletic two-way player in the league. He's arguably the best athlete in the league for his size. There's no doubt about it. And he does use it to his advantage, thank God, ability to get to the cup. Now, the one thing he does need, though, is a jumper and needs to start delivering late in games. Now, it's all good to be able to get to the hole. It's all well and good to, just bully your way down low for 3 quarters. But in the fourth quarter, when you can't penetrate the dribble and you're not going to get that call at the rim, you're going to need to start hitting jumpers. And that's why Chris Middleton has been a major second hand for this Milwaukee Bucks team. Mainly because Giannis's lack of being able to rely on a jumper anywhere on the floor, and particularly his lack of ability to successfully convert at the foul line is proving trouble. And again, in a late game situation and in clutch situations, you have to be able to deliver at the line. You have to be able to hit the jumpers. And that's just something that he's not quite able to do yet. He needs to really get that sorted, though, because come playoff time, that's going to be relied upon. However, he is still probably the third player in my MVP race. At number 2, I have Kevin Durant of the Golden State Warriors. He has dropped off a little bit, and that's things we can explain here in a second. 28.5 points, 7.5 rebounds, 6.2 assists, looks after itself. 0.8 steals and a block. He is a capable defender on the other end of the floor, on 3.4 turnovers, and having a good scoring year. 50.6 from the field, just under 37% from deep, and over 90% from the free throw line. To me, he's the best player in the NBA. Just the way he's going about it at the moment. His ability to score on all facets of the offensive end is what just makes him so deadly. I mean, he can take you into the post, he can drive past you, he's got the handle, he can hit the jumper. I mean, it's very rare that you're going to catch Kevin Durant out of position on the offensive end. And he is a capable defender, and to me, it's just his overwhelming offense. And I mean, again, it's not because he's not a great defender, but he's a good defender. He's no slouch by any stretch of the imagination. So, I mean, his efficient scoring, he's reasonably efficient with his possession when you look at it all. So, yeah, to me, the best player in the NBA. And I mean, there's probably no player in the NBA that causes more worries than Kevin Durant. I mean, if you need to worry about LeBron, you need to force LeBron into a bad defensive matchup, or you make him take the jump shot. If you're going up against Giannis Antetokounmpo, you make him take the jump shot. Ben Simmons, take the jump shot. Embiid doesn't shoot 50%. And if you can frustrate him a bit and take him off his own game, he'll shoot himself out of the game. You look at a Russell Westbrook, he's willing to just toss shots up left, right, and centre. LaMarcus Aldridge has been having poor rebounding games, and when he doesn't get into his groove on the glass, he's of no help to anyone. Tobias Harris, again, he's a role player. He is essentially a glorified role player at the moment. So if you want to really put the pressure on him, he struggles. Steph Curry, reasonably hard to sort of deal with at times, but I mean, he has to be within the flow of his offense. And if you can catch him taking really off-balance jumpers and not allowing him to see himself, then that causes trouble. Whereas Kevin Durant's the kind of player that no matter what sort of mood he's in, he's going to affect the team offensively or defensively. If he's having a bad game on offense, he'll go down on the D. If he's having on the defensive end, geez, that sounded bad. Then on the other end, if he's having not the greatest defensive game, then he tries to really counter his opponent on offense and really hammer at them. And again, that's why it causes more concerns for opposing teams. However, he's going to need to get this chemistry right because in order to keep pushing the Warriors to the championship, there's no doubt about it. Kevin Durant wants his eyes on a third straight ring and a third straight finals MVP to put him up there with some of the greatest players to have played the game. However, he's going to really need to keep pushing the envelope if that's going to be the case. Because at the moment, there are chemistry issues that are going on. Some of the defensive issues that are going on with the Warriors are going to potentially cost this side. So once he can get into the flow and keep pushing the Warriors to the championship, he'll be fine. But at the moment, I've had to put him at number 2 on my MVP race. And at number 1, I have Paul George of the Oklahoma City Thunder. 26.4 points, 8.2 rebounds, 4.1 assists, 2.2 steals, 0.6 blocks on less than 3 turnovers. Passable 45% shooting when you look at what he does on the other end of the floor. He's a good shooter from deep at just under 39%, and a good shooter from the foul stripe at over 80%, just under 84% there. And at the moment, with the way Russell Westbrook's playing and the assistance he's sort of getting, he's getting a little bit of help on the glass there from Steven Adams, but he's dragging the Thunder through the West on both ends of the floor. I mean, who out there could say they go out and lock up the best perimeter player every single night, while also putting 25 on the board and being able to get his teammates involved and hit the big buckets? At the moment, that's Paul George. To me, he's the defensive player of the year. Just his ability on both ends at the moment is really shining through. Again, you've got to look at the fact that Russell Westbrook is on this side, shooting the air out of the ball. Steven Adams is also grabbing rebounds, but there's not much, outside of both of those players. And it's going to be Paul George who can potentially win the Rockets championship the Thunder a championship this year. Again, defensive player of the year. He's making up a hell of a lot of ground for some of the poor players on this team. And for me, Russell Westbrook included. Westbrook's having a good year on defense, but he still has them lapses where he doesn't care. Paul George is the guy that makes up for that, whilst also looking after himself. Again, though, probably wants to look to improve that efficiency. If he can get that shooting up to 48% mark, he'll be fine. His other percentages will look after himself in the meantime. But again, he's pretty efficient with the ball in hand, which is good to see. Again, scoring efficiency is going to be pivotal, particularly with a team that does contain Russell Westbrook and his ability to shoot the air out of the ball. Again, that's why I'm saying he's dragging this Thunder through the West on both ends. He's locking it up on D, and he's making up so much ground on offense, it's not even fair. And to me, Paul George would have to be the MVP. I mean, he's dragged them to a top 3 candidacy in the West. He's delivered without Westbrook. I mean, there's not much more the guy has to do. Now, will he be able to continue it after the All-Star break is the big question. The All-Star break really is where teams start to sort themselves out. So if he's able to keep pushing it and keep getting the job done, again, there's no reason, why the OKC can't even push for that first seed. I mean, if they finish a top 3 seed, Paul George to me is the MVP. There's no doubt about it. Record is everything in the MVP vote. It's very rare a side outside of the top 3 will have the MVP of the league. So we'll be interested to see where that goes after All-Star break. But at the moment, for me, Paul George of the Oklahoma City Thunder is my MVP. And thank you very much for watching the video, guys. You can hit me up on Twitter there, Justin_G_Brian. Thank you very much again for watching the video. Hit that like button. Leave me some feedback. Let me know who your top 10 the MVP is, who your MVP is, who your next 5 are to come in, potential overrated player of the season, and even some underrated players in the season. Maybe someone I might have even missed off the list. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel for more upcoming content throughout the NBA season. Thank you very much for watching the video, guys. I've been Justin, and again, my MVP so far for 2018-2019 is Paul George of the Oklahoma City Thunder. I'll check you guys later.